Hello and welcome to another episode here on my channel. My name is ChaosMole, and today we just finished watching Power On, the story of Xbox, Chapter 1, which is a 6-chapter long documentary. And they are talking about how Xbox came to be and the problems they actually have. And as I said, we just finished the first chapter. It's 40 minutes long, so it's quite a bit. And because, let's be honest here, not everyone has the time to watch 40 minutes of this, I made a little TLDR. And that's what we are doing here. So, what is the first chapter about? The first chapter is very much about the problem to get the idea of a console into Microsoft. Microsoft at the time was a software company through and through, and a group of the DirectX branch of Microsoft was basically loving games, and they saw what's going on in the living rooms of the people. They're all playing PlayStation, all Nintendo, and yes, Sega at the time. And they were like, dude, we're losing ground here. Like, we are losing out literally on money and on reach, especially the new generation of people, which will probably all be gamers, will not necessarily go to Microsoft. So we have to do something. And the biggest problem at the time was that Microsoft didn't had anything to do with gaming at all. And then they slowly started to do gaming on PC with Age of Empires, MechWarrior, and some other games. And the company slowly realized, oh, well, will you look at that? Video games can actually be interesting and can make us money. Maybe we should focus more on this. But that was still a huge step from making some video games, which is still software, to make hardware. And the biggest problem this group has was that they basically didn't had any political power inside of Microsoft. They didn't know the people who could greenlit this. And the whole thing came down to, hey, we need around $500 million, and we want to take this from other parts of the companies to fuel our pipe dream here, which is hardware. And as you can imagine, back in the day at Microsoft, most executives at Microsoft were like, huh? What are you gonna do? Are you nuts? Right? And so that was like their biggest problem. And well, they then started to get to know the right people, and they actually had like a big meet and greet. Microsoft is like doing once a year, and they were asking a simple question, which was, what happens when Sony and PlayStation are working together with like all the big internet providers, and they're basically taking over from here when it comes to internet and internet gaming, and Microsoft is not in it. And that was such an important question that even Bill Gates was there and was asking, yeah, what are we going to do about that? So, because they heard that PlayStation back in the day was gunning at the PC. They wanted to see the death of the PC at some point, and the PlayStation would deliver that. So they had to do things. And this ended up with the company actually looking for people who knew how to make hardware, how to make a console. And, well, to the surprise of the DirectX team, there was another team who was gunning for the console, and that was the Windows CE team, which was another operating system by Microsoft back in the day. And they already were a little bit further in the planning phase, where they wanted to work with Panasonic, and they want to basically utilize that technology and just use Panasonic as a stepping stone into the console business, because Panasonic already had a console. Nobody knows about that thing because it didn't sell, but that's a different topic. Back at the time, they were much, much further in the whole thing of making a console, and it would also be much, much safer for Microsoft because they could just go with Panasonic at the time, right? And so those two teams had to fight over the approval of Bill Gates. They were literally in the room together and they had to punch the shit out of each other, so to speak. And what basically won Bill Gates over was that they made a prototype of the Xbox. Like, not even a prototype, like a proof of concept. They just mushed some hardware together and they did rewrite some Windows code and all that. And then they put this console on the table and they were like, okay, we're booting this up now. And there was a timer on the console. And that timer was showing like 4 seconds. It took the PC and Windows to boot in 4 seconds. Keep in mind, that was back in the day where SSDs didn't exist, and even the HDDs were so slow that booting up a PC, you could go into the kitchen, make coffee, then go on the toilet, then come back, and then maybe, just maybe, your PC was booted up. So they basically had a proof of concept there, booting up in 4 seconds. So for Bill Gates, that was like, what did you just do? What is this? Right? And there was how they then won Bill Gates over. Problem was, Bill Gates wasn't the only leadership figure at the time anymore, but also Steve Ballmer was very important to win over because he's the money guy. He approves the money and you have to tell him, hey, we need $500 million here and we take that from all of our other, parts of Microsoft. Is that okay for you? And of course, Steve Ballmer didn't have that. He was like, what? Okay, what does this cost? What does this cost? How do we make this? Where do we get this? How much will this part cost? How do we do the logistics? And he was asking like all the tough money questions where the team had to say, sorry, that we can't answer you that right now, but we can tell you what we believe in, what we can tell you, what we can make. And so basically Steve Ballmer was then, okay, I approve this, but you have to figure this out. So they didn't say that, but it sounded like Steve Ballmer still had like a last exit, like when the company was actually focusing on how much this all would cost, and it would be too much, that he could still say, nah, now that we have the final results here, I'm sorry, folks, this is not what we can do. But they didn't say that. They just said that Steve Ballmer basically approved this and that they don't really have to like think about it too much and they should just make it work. But all in all, this was a very interesting first video they made here. I'm curious to see all the other parts. And there wasn't too much information. Like, this is really just interesting for the fans or for the people who are working in the industry like me, and not necessarily like some new information which might be interesting for all the gamers out there. That was not what the first video was about. But that's fine, because as I said, this is like really literally the first step of Microsoft into the gaming world. So we will see how this continues. I'm looking forward to part 2. If you want to see me reacting to all of those, you can find those in the video description under this video, and then I will always do like a TLDR to the other parts we have been watching, so you have the chance to watch it in full, the whole 40 minutes, or you can just continue to watch the TLDR if you don't have the time for it. With that said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like. It would help me out a great deal. If you're new to the channel and you want to help me out further, I would appreciate if you subscribe to the channel. We are doing reaction videos, gaming news, tips and tricks for new games, and, well, also those TLDR reaction videos. I don't even know what you would call them, but I would appreciate if you might consider to subscribe to the channel. With that said, thanks so much for watching. Hope I see you next time. Stay safe. Till then.